We're gonna have the top 10 quarterback list at the end of this 2015 season, starting from, you know, bottom to top for dramatic effect. You want to start with maybe the honorable mentions that came into on your side?
The biggest one that's not on my list to me is Derek Carr.
Yeah,
He had a pretty good season. He wasn't stand out anywhere, and I mean, compared to these others, it was like really hard. Like he just didn't pop out enough to be like, all right, he should be in over this guy,
yeah.
basically. Um, Another guy that statistically has a terrible season, but is Peyton Manning. He's in the fucking Super Bowl, so
Yeah,
I mean, if he wins the Super Bowl, then it's like, would you rather have a ring or be ranked number one? You know what I mean? So,
yeah. You know, that is crazy. Peyton Manning's not in our top 10 list, and he is in the Super Bowl. But,
right,
that just kind of shows that sometimes, well, it actually, what it mostly shows is just how far defenses can carry you, and for a good
right,
team.
right.
So you want, for me, Derek Carr, I agree with.
Yeah,
I didn't even think really about Peyton Manning. I mean, that sounds
yeah.
terrible to say, but
Well,
uh,
no, he's definitely like way near the bottom as far as stats go, but
yeah,
his team's at least second place. So,
yeah.
yeah.
You want me to start it off, or do you want to start it off?
I'll jump in. Number
Okay.
10 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Portals. Blake Bortles. If he didn't have so many interceptions, he probably would have ranked higher.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of interceptions. Was it 18?
He had 18 interceptions. He originally was ranked higher, but the interceptions was bad. On top of that, he had a 58% completion rating, and
Yeah, which is the lowest.
right, it's the lowest out of the top 10, and he also had the lowest quarterback rating out of the top 10, which is 88.2. So I just kind of,
But he had 4,400 yards and 35 touchdowns.
yeah, and that was
So
damn
it's like
impressive.
um, he showed a lot of potential. He just needs to make better decisions.
Yeah.
He needs a better team too around him. But
Yeah, well, between Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns, I think he's got the wide receiver, obviously, because he's passing it a lot.
sure,
Uh, but I agree. I think if their team develops more, and what is this? Is only a second year pro, so he's got time. He's got a lot of time to develop, and I think he can. He just got to work on his accuracy a little bit and try not to make so many mistakes, and he's gonna be higher on it. I mean,
it's like it's similar to Carr. They both have some roughness around the edges, but them and the Jaguars and the Raiders both have a lot to work with here.
yeah,
And like if you're a fan of those teams, you got a lot to look forward to.
right, right,
Unless you're afraid that one of those teams might lose. But anyways,
yeah. So, I get the honors to do number 9, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
super beneficial because
I'll let you do this.
I really ironically, I'm wearing his jersey, was college jersey. Aaron Rodgers is number 9, and a lot of people probably would disagree with him even being in a top 10 list. Admittedly, he has a down season and everything, but what's crazy is that his down season, he's in the running statistically with almost everybody on this list. Lowest passing yards with 3,821, but you know what? He only has 10 less passing yards than Cam Newton does, and Cam Newton's an MVP eligible this year. I mean,
Right.
probably like greatest chance of getting it. So he only had 10 less passing yards than our potential MVP. 31 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions, which 8 interceptions to
A
Aaron
lot less
Rodgers.
rushing yards, though.
Well, yeah. 8 interceptions for Aaron Rodgers is actually a lot, which is weird.
Yeah,
Uh,
like double last year.
well, no, he threw
Well,
5 last year,
yeah,
but
five. So
still,
almost.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And he only had a 60% completion rating. That's extremely low for Rodgers, because Rodgers is never known for passing for a shit ton of yards, but his accuracy is always super high,
right.
and he's definitely had a down year. That's for certain. But I argued and that he had to be in the top 10 list because he had the Hail Mary. He had the best play in the entire season with the Hail Mary.
Yeah,
And he did it
Rodgers
twice.
to Rodgers.
Rogers to Rogers, the miracle in
Yeah, in the
Motown.
playoffs.
The thing is, he did it twice. He did it again in the playoffs, but no one's going to be talking about that because they lost that game. But realistically, he threw two, last minute Hail Marys into the end zone successfully, and no other quarterback has ever done that. He's got to be in the top 10 for that feat
And
alone.
31 touchdowns. So,
And 31 touchdowns is pretty damn good. So for having an off year, especially, that's pretty damn good.
I'll do the honor of Louisiana boy next on the list,
Yeah, right.
Eli Manning, and we kind of grappled with this ranking a little bit, but I think this fits. He has, I think, the lowest passer rating on the list. Maybe second lowest. I don't know, but 4,400 yards, 35 touchdowns. His interception rate's kind of high. It always is. 62% completions. Is it 14 interceptions? I think.
Yeah.
Just so he had his team didn't have the greatest year. He's got Odell Beckham. I don't know. Just like it's pretty non-controversial ranking. It's a little surprising to see him ranked higher than Aaron Rodgers, but
Right.
I think this is where he fits. Honestly,
Well, and we're especially talking about Blake Bortles. I mean, they're only 6 yards apart from each other, had the same amount of touchdowns. Blake Bortles had only four more interceptions than him. They almost had identical stats.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
they almost had identical records, too, for their teams. But they're both extremely high. So I guess for both the Giants and the Jaguars, that it's obviously not your quarterback that's what's wrong. You have the solid quarterback. There's just something bigger that's going on with the team.
You want to do the next guy?
Yeah. Number 7, we have ranked Ben Roethlisberger. This guy almost passed for 4,000 yards, and he didn't even play the entire season with injuries. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
The lowest end, he had 16 interceptions and 21 touchdowns. Now, the 21 touchdowns I could understand being low because he didn't play a season, but 16 interceptions? He only had one less than Peyton Manning, although Peyton Manning didn't play a complete season
Well,
either.
what's crazy is his completion percentage is so high. So he obviously was throwing most of his passes like accurately. It's just
Yeah,
he, every once in a while he just threw a terrible one or something. Like
I think
and Brees has seasons like that too. Honestly,
I
I
think he
think some
just
of
likes
that's
to
spread
sling it
the
in. I think he likes to force a lot
yeah,
to make the play. He's kind
yeah,
of Breeze will do that. Favre used to do that. I think Roethlisberger does it too. They like to try to force these certain throws, and
yeah.
it's either it's going to be a great play or it's going to be a pick, and obviously you
That'll
got the picks.
that generally leads to at least double digits in interceptions.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Number 6 is Philip Rivers. He actually, I'm actually surprised he didn't finish higher on this list.
yep,
But it's sort of because the second half of the season, his team was bad,
yeah, that's
and
true.
the second half his stats suffered. I mean, players got hurt. You know, the obvious one is Keenan Allen
Yeah,
lost for the season, so that probably hurt his stats a good bit. But he still has 4,700 yards, which is it's a lot of damn yards.
he's actually really close to 4,800 yards. I think
Right, well,
he
yeah,
finished
4,700. Yeah,
finished second overall in the NFL for most passing yards.
yeah. So, touchdowns 29. Not great. Great completion percentage at 66. 13 interceptions. Or yeah, that's I think that's what he fits. I feel like that's also not controversial. We
Yeah, it's
pretty
not
much got
super.
along. And
I mean, yeah, he. The reason he's so high is because he has such impressive passing yards. He just threw for
right,
so many yards, and that was like one of his. He had a good completion rating too, like
yeah,
actually a pretty damn high completion rating. So that's kind of what overall like put him at number 6. But
yeah.
if it wasn't for those two stats, he probably won't even be considered as a top 10.
You
Just
know
based off his team.
what's interesting to me, which is a pattern that I didn't really think of when we were making this list, and I'm noticing it as we're looking down the list. There's a lot of quarterbacks on this list that had bad teams.
Yeah,
Like it's unusual to see this many top quarterbacks on bad teams.
yeah, that's true. Sorry, I take on my throat. So, right, number 5. Number 5 is going to have Russell Wilson. Probably the most interesting thing because if you remember at a midseason at week 8 assessment, Russell Wilson wasn't in our top 10 list at all.
Right, right,
And he's ended the season over 4,000 yards passing, 34 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions, a 68% completion rating, and he had the highest quarterback
right.
rating with 110.1 in the entire NFL. This is a guy that started off so slow and that he ended up having such an amazing second half of the season that he went all the way to rank 5 when he wasn't
Yeah,
even ranked top 10
if we were
before.
handing out awards for second half performances, he would have been number one based on just the second half of football
I think like just the last 4 games alone of the
games.
season,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just throwing
De-
like 5 touchdowns
December.
a game.
Yeah, yeah.
It was crazy. So he definitely deserves to be at least in the top 5. So that's pretty damn impressive.
Number four, Carson Palmer. Now he's easy to shit on after the playoffs because he had a terrible performance uh, against the Panthers. But I mean, no one's really looked good against the Panthers this season. I'll cut him a little bit of slack. Guy had 4,600 yards, 35 TDs, 11 interceptions, 60% completion, over 100 on the passer, 104, which is, I mean, that's second best.
Yeah, he had
Uh,
the second best quarterback rating in the NFL.
the Cardinals, I think, had their best season ever as far as win loss record.
Was it ever in franchise history?
Probably so, man. 13-3.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah,
guess they probably did.
I think it was. So I mean, they didn't get the Super Bowl, but hey, the Cardinals never won the Super Bowl, so not a bad thing.
If you can't do it with Kurt Warner, you can't do it with Carson Palmer.
I mean, that said, though, I mean, most of that team will still be together next year,
Yeah.
too. So
The only thing
I'm
that they
curious to see
might
what
not
number
have
three.
is Chris Johnson, but even if they don't have Chris Johnson, you always have David Johnson, who's just as good, if not better. I mean, he's younger at the very least.
Right, right. All right.
Number 3, we have Drew Brees.
My personal favorite.
What?
Said my personal favorite.
Oh, yeah. Guy had the most passing yards in the NFL. 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 68% completion rating, which is crazy, and a solid 101. So also over 100 in his quarterback. Um, it's just crazy. I mean, especially when we were tracking like the most passing yards in the NFL. Like Tom or Philip Rivers is leading it pretty much all throughout the NFL. For a little bit, Tom Brady was leading it for like like maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, and all of a sudden Breeze just came out of nowhere and just blew both of them out and ended up with the most passing yards. And it was just I don't think anybody saw that, especially just kind of the Saints generally having an up and down season and everything. I don't think anybody predicted Drew Brees to, have the most passing yard. And, again, he was the closest one to breaking 5,000 yards in a single season. And Brees, out of anybody, is known for just doing that. So, I mean, most passing yards, but at least top 3.
Right. No one's really talking about the fact he led the league and he missed a game.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. He was at 4,870. If he would have played that one game and gotten, you know, 230 yards, he would have broke 5,000 right there.
Right. Right. He probably would have. So and 68% completion. So yeah, he might even throw the ball a lot, but I mean, he was those good passes.
Yeah, exactly.
So number two, and I think this will be no one's surprise. Tom Brady, 4,700 yards. I mean, this touchdown interception ratio is just wow.
I think he had the best in the NFL.
Yeah, 36-7, 64% completion. I mean, any other year, this is number one.
Yeah.
You know, like based on just passer stats alone, I think he's number one. It's if we're talking just quarterback, traditional quarterback, you know, passing touchdowns, but well, the number one guy is the number one guy because he has more than that. But yeah, I mean, any other year that would have been good enough.
It would have been any other year, but this isn't any other year.
Right,
Number one, we have Cam Newton.
right.
Here's his overall stats. He did not break 4,000 yards. 38, 37 is his total. 35 touchdowns, pretty damn good. He's on par with Tom Brady, Brees, Carson Palmer, Russell Wilson. 60% completion rating, so he ties Aaron Rodgers. 99.4 quarterback rating. So just passing alone, not amazing stats. Or I shouldn't say amazing. They're impressive stats.
A borderline top 10 finish.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like he's in the top 10, but you would look at those stats and be like, well, number one, that's almost comparable to Aaron Rodgers, and you have it at number 9. He had
Right.
636 rushing yards alone, and 10 rushing touchdowns alone.
Which is like number 5 for
Yeah,
like all running backs.
but here's the thing that is really interesting. So he's up for MVP candidacy. That's not a secret and everything. I looked at his 2011 stats. He had more rushing yards, more passing yards, and more rushing touchdowns. And he wasn't even considered, like, even in the running for MVP. He wasn't even considered a top 10 quarterback in 2011.
Well, let's face it, his team record being 15-1 has a lot to do with
Yeah,
this.
that's kind of what I'm getting at about the whole MVP award. Because in
He also has more of a
2011,
team around him this year too, so he doesn't have to carry the team
yeah,
quite as much as he was before.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Now he can put up these impressive stats, and it looks even better because his team just looks better.
I mean, he has a top 10 spoiler alert running back on his team now, and he has arguably the best defense.
In the NFC, at least.
Right. Right. Well, arguably in the NFL. I mean, definitely in the NFC.
Yeah,
So, anyway, but yeah, Cam Newton's our number one pick, and I think he's an MVP.
yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to add on it?
No, no, it's just that's. I think
No,
that's about it.
I'm gonna say one guy we noticed we didn't talk about,
Okay.
and that's Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
And it was nothing personal, but yeah, he's not here.
Yeah. It's
Maybe it's that playoff finish again. I don't know. I never even really. I'm not shitting on the guy. And maybe the next ranked guy, maybe 12 or something. But
right.
that finish is just. I don't know. I mean, I know we're mostly based. It'd be hard to say we're not taking into account postseason when we know what happened.
Right.
But,
Right. Well, yeah. Andy Dalton. He's at least an honorable mention. I mean, he is a good quarterback, and he did have good stats, but just not as good as these guys, though. Better records, than a lot of these teams, but just not individual better stats than these top 10 guys that played this season. And
yeah,
kind of like Cam Newton, he does have a team built around him.
sure.
you know, and some of these guys didn't. Are like Ben Roethlisberger, who didn't even play a full season and still came out with more passing yards than Andy Dalton did, which is kind
Yeah.
of well. Andy Dalton didn't play a full season either, but still, I mean, not he didn't miss as many games as Ben Roethlisberger did either.
Oh well, that's a wrap. Cam
Yeah.
Newton, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, top three.
Last thing, I guess I should probably say the elephant in the room of that midway through your like screen froze, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
actually pretty fortunate you're not giving a goofy face. So
Yeah, that's cool.
that's cool. But as long as we got your audio, I guess that's all that really matters. So just you know,
We'll have that fixed in terms of this.
hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So all right. Make sure to watch our other top 10 videos this week as we're counting down to the Super Bowl. We're going to have our playoff. I'm used to saying that too. We're going to have our Super Bowl predictions, this week as well. And then definitely next week we'll be talking about the Super Bowl and everything that happens during the game because it's only a few days away. It's going to be exciting. This is, this is too hard. I can't tell you what the hell you're doing because the screen's frozen.